Welcome to the CE Pro podcast. I'm Executive Editor Arlen Schweiger. With the labor pool so tight today, many integrators are seeking alternatives. In most cases, we hear from dealers desperate to find technicians and sales staff. But what about other vital areas like design, engineering, and programming? Perhaps those can be outsourced. BlueDog Group is made up of industry veterans who work closely with integrators to essentially become the design and programming team. CE Pro's Jason Knott got a chance to speak with representatives from BlueDog Group on this week's episode of the podcast to find out how dealers can set up an outsourcing relationship for these important areas of their company. As always, be sure to subscribe to CE Pro's YouTube channel and hit that like button on our videos, or subscribe to the CE Pro podcast on Apple and Spotify and leave a review.
Hi, Jason Knott with CE Pro, and I am excited to be joined today by managing partners Kurt Hayes and Doug Dodd of BlueDog Group. Hi, Kurt. Hi, Doug.
Hi, Jason. I'm Kurt.
Thanks for coming today. I really appreciate it. And today we're going to talk in depth about how integrators can really improve their sales and their proposals and their closing rates. And Kurt and Doug are experts in this area and have some great advice to offer to the integrator community. But first, let me start out with a little bit of background. Kurt, tell us a little bit about your background.
All right. Well, I've been in the industry for longer than I care to admit, 30 years at this point. Started originally in a high-end two-channel store. My dad and I started in Dallas. We did that for several years. That morphed into becoming custom installation. When in the early days of custom installation, when CEDIA was just rolling out, in-wall products were being developed for the first time. And so I have done everything in this industry. I've drilled holes and pulled wire and built racks and done, all of the integration activities. And then midway through my career, moved out of being an integrator to frankly what we do now with BlueDog, doing outsourced system design supported by data. So that's the thumbnail version of my background.
Fantastic. Doug, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So my tenure in this industry started about 20 years ago. I was brought on as a technical sales guy at Jeff Hoover's Audio Advisors in West Palm Beach, and learned the hard way, on the job, making it happen. I've done almost everything in the business, no programming, but leveraging my schooling as an architect, my experience in the construction industry, and my electronics out of my military experience, it's morphed into working with Kurt for the last 10 years here at BlueDog, after working at a couple of other larger organizations around the country. So for the last 10 years, it's been outsourced design documentation with Kurt at BlueDog and our team.
There is no question that the more successful companies come from people who have been in the field like you two guys. So that's great to hear. So Kurt, tell us a little bit about BlueDog Group specifically.
Okay, well, for me, I have this approach to things where if I'm going to do something more than once, I document it. And so I've always been, for all the responsibilities I had as an integrator, I still was drawn more towards design and the detail of design and getting labor assigned correctly, things of that nature. So I started, we sold our company in Dallas. I started working with an integrator here in South Florida, where I am now. And that's where I got introduced. We started using D-Tools and started building this D-Tools catalog. And about that time is when Crestron introduced the Crestron K program, the independent programmers. And it seemed to me, or it occurred to me, that if integrators were willing to outsource programming, that in similar fashion, they would be interested in outsourcing system design and documentation. I felt like that was something we could do on a virtual basis. And so I started what was audio design in 2005 or 6, and just initially just doing proposals and drawings. And shortly thereafter, I got introduced to Doug. Doug joined me, like you say, 11, I think, years ago at this point. And we focused initially on just being effectively a virtual engineering department, doing what the guy down the hall would be doing, except we're doing it across the internet. So that's what we've been focused on for the last decade and a half.
So you're kind of a two-headed monster. Let me talk about your defined roles. Doug, what's your defined role, and then what's Kurt's defined role?
So I'm head of the design and documentation side of things. I work with integrators who need everything from a simple rough-in plan to complete design and engineering services for their operation. We have a couple of our clients that don't have any designers at all. They've got really smart sales guys and they've got really smart project managers. We fill that gap in between there. So.
All right, so you wrote a great article for CE Pro that was up on our website about defining scope in terms of when you're putting together your designs and putting together your proposals. So Kurt, give us a quick definition for integrators out there. When we're talking about scope, what are we actually talking about?
Okay, well, it speaks to the fundamental of BlueDog, and that is we're trying to support our integrators and identify where are their bottlenecks in their business and how can we work to help alleviate some of those bottlenecks. So one of the number one things that we see in the industry is a backlog of proposals and getting accurate proposals created. So the impetus for the scope budget selling system for us as system designers, we see scope derived from in many different ways. But fundamentally, scope to me isn't parts and pieces. It's wants. It's client wants. What is this client telling me they want? I want TVs in these rooms. I want music in these rooms. It's the number of the number of things, and ultimately budget is the relative cost of things. And so scope really is in front of the proposal. That's where it should be. It should be identifying wants, quantifying them in generic terms before you get into actually the nuts and bolts of building the proposal, which is really a bill of materials ultimately. Doug, do you want to piggyback on that in terms of scope from how you've experienced it too?
Yeah, I learned from an early point in the career. Back when I started, I took the sales 101 classes of selling luxury items. You don't sell the boxes, you sell the experience. If you're selling a Ferrari, you're not selling the spark plugs and the fan belts and the stem caps. You're selling what it feels like to put the top down and run that thing at 100 miles an hour down the highway with the wind in your hair. And what it feels like on your cranium at 100 miles an hour. So you're not selling the boxes. So to go through and sell a scope is to sell expectations. To sell a scope is to talk about the experience. The expectations are then what is your budget that you are comfortable with in relation to that scope. That's what our tool does. Our tool allows someone to talk about the individual spaces. What experience do you want in that space? What's the financial ramifications of that experience at multiple different quality levels? And then be able to give you an end number on that first experience. I know so many guys in this industry that don't talk about price when they're talking to their customer the first, the second, even the third time out. And then when they go back and spend 2 weeks trying to put together a whale of a proposal, and then they submit it, they realize that the client doesn't want to spend, $750,000. Their budget might have been more of $150,000. So this scope and budget methodology is to assist an integrator, a sales guy, or even a project manager that's out there trying to upsell a client that's already got a system in their place. It's out there to assist them in setting expectations up front so that the process, once it gets into motion, can be efficient and effective for everybody involved.
Let me pick up, you both have hinted at the scope and budget selling system and the actual app and the tool. And Doug, let me let you pick up on that. Exactly what is it? You've kind of, I guess, morphed the business from originally probably doing design and consulting to actually creating this app tool for dealers. What is it?
So I'm schooled as an architect. I've spent many, many, many years doing architecture, interior work. And the big thing about that industry is they don't do any work up front. They have a portfolio. And when you sit down with a client, you talk to them about the potential of that portfolio. I have these capabilities and here's what I can provide for you. in our industry, we're a little bit more centric on systems. We're a little bit more centric on stuff. But if you can leverage a portfolio that has the visuals of what you're doing, and you can utilize an app that can describe the scope of the budget or of the project and the budget ramifications, our system is a combination of taking a portfolio, sitting in front of your client, utilizing a piece of technology that validates and gives you credibility. Why? Because you're just not pulling it out of your head. You're seeing it on your laptop. You're seeing it on your iPad. You're seeing it in a physical form where the client understands that, okay, you've got your ducks in order. I see what you can accomplish. I see the budget. That is the scope I want. I'd like it at the bottom of the range. I'd like it at the top of the range. You can get a signature right there on site. And at that point, you can collect a retainer, take it home, pay your engineers, your designers in order to get it done. And your client is already qualified. It's a qualification tool. How many times have we heard about qualify your customer, qualify the project? This is a way to qualify the customer and the project.
Talk a little bit about, I'm fascinated by this because I've heard so many times from some integrators kind of the pros and cons of being able to create an immediate proposal versus taking it back and sitting on it for a while. And even if they could turn it around in 24 hours, they don't, because they want the customer to think that they've really mulled over this solution specific to them and custom to them for a week or 48 hours or 72 hours or whatever. What are the pros and cons of being able to do it so quickly, so efficiently, right in front of them? You mentioned the budget part. That's the obvious one. You're never going to come up with a proposal that's way out of scope for the customer. But what are some of the pros and cons there of that quick turnaround versus maybe that methodical look?
Well, I think we're talking about two different things at this point. Our app is not a proposal generation app. It is literally, you've got 6 TVs, medium quality, 2 TVs, excellent quality, and you go through your entire systems. Again, we're not looking at a whole house where we're putting in a foundation, walls, cabinets, and all the details. Okay, an architect, an interior designer, a professional in the design world doesn't talk about those things straight up. They talk about how do you flow through? What do you want the overall picture to look like? That's what we're doing with the app. I agree that there should be time involved, perceived time involved in creating a full-fledged document that gives you the details. Now, the third part to our scope and budget selling system, you've got the portfolio. That's what you can do. You've got your app, which is setting the expectations and getting a check to go forward. And you've got the third part, which is a concept drawing, which is where there is investment. If we can get a scope and we understand at what quality level, then we can create a sales tool called a concept drawing, which is we take and ingest their plan set, and then we do a graphic around the plan set that shows the client-facing items, the speakers, the television, the handheld remotes, the items that they're going to be interfacing with, the ones that they're familiar with that are going to give them their experience. And utilizing that concept drawing, you can put together a scope, a deeper scope budget if you want to, or you could put together a very detailed budget that can go along with it. It's, some of these projects are very easy. You got a TV, you got a back box, you got a remote control. That might be all you're doing. But on some of the bigger projects, our clients don't understand the complexity. I've had many clients sit down with me with a concept drawing and go, oh, that's a lot of stuff. Until you get that stuff in front of them, and then we want it to just disappear once it's in their architecture. But getting that stuff pictured out on a piece of paper gives them idea of the complexity that we have to get more complex in our world to make it more simple for them to use. They don't need to know that. What they need to know is that we've got it covered. We've got the capabilities, your portfolio. We've already set the expectations, the scope and budget app. And now we're starting the design utilizing a concept drawing to talk about the process going forward.
So this is really designed to allow that sales process to go smoother. It's not a situation where the information that's being collected in the app is actually being linked to and uploaded into a proposal system from D-Tools or something of that nature.
Yeah, just to, I think our industry, what I've experienced over 30 years of watching this industry, is that the modus operandi is the salesperson, be it the business owner, salesperson, whomever, goes out, meets with the prospective client. They talk about a lot of things. The client is sharing with them what they want. There's maybe some notes taken, hopefully. But then the next step is to take whatever was gleaned from that meeting and go back to the office. And this alludes to what you just touched on, Jason. They go and they sit on it. So now they're busy with all the other things they have to do. Whatever they remembered from that meeting is now being forgotten over the days that follow. And the idea then is, I'm going to build this proposal. So you mentioned the D-Tools, the iPoints, the portals, whatever. Those are proposal generation software. That's putting makes and models with those wants. And that work takes time. That's why people sit on it. It's like, well, I don't have 6, 8, 10 hours to put this proposal together right now. So I'm going to go do something else until I do have 6, 8, 10 hours. What happens is the day of the meeting or the day before their meeting, it's like, oh crap, I have to go meet with Mr. Jones. I've got to throw something together. And what we wind up with is a bunch of very inaccurate, incomplete, inconsistent proposals. So the idea behind our scope budget selling system is to pause, to put a little bit more time and effort into the qualifying of the client. Let's get a range of budget, good, better, best for TVs. Let's get a range of budget if you want a theater. Is it a $50,000 theater or a $150,000 theater? If you talk about that as you go, and so I talk about that in the article. You know, I can walk into a builder's model home and I know based on the big sign out in front, this is a $500,000 house or this is $1 million house. Our industry doesn't have that. So when you say, oh, do you want a theater? What's in the client's mind? Our qualifying tool is to help you with a tool like Doug mentioned, say, okay, theater, here's a range of prices, $10,000, $100,000. If they're like $100,000, how do you spend $100,000 on a theater? Well, then you have the opportunity to talk about that. So the idea is, let's spend a little bit more time qualifying simple tools. Let's talk about the wants, let's get some quantities. And then the concept drawing is something that in our world, and an integrator could do this themselves, it's pictures. It's just saying, here's your floor plan, and here's a picture of a TV in your family room. Here's a picture of a touchscreen in your kitchen. Then people can understand it, and that doesn't take a lot of time. So the idea is, let's get them qualified and then get a design retainer, because now they're committed. That's that first small yes. I've now invested in you, Mr. Prospective Client. We've talked about your wants. We've talked about budgets. I've showed you where these things are going to go. Now I need to take this to my skilled guys, my engineers that produce all these drawings that I showed you in my portfolio book, right? That was Doug talking in the SBS system. The portfolio book is, here's what we can do. Here's what we're going to produce for you. We're going to have rough-in plans and conduit drawings and rack elevation drawings and point-to-point schematic drawings. This is all going to support your system, just like your architect's blueprint. So the idea is, get that information, get them understanding what it is you're going to produce for them, collect some money to now go and spend the time and have the right people in your organization spend the time to build that proposal. So the salesperson can go talk about wants and desires and relative, numbers of items and dollars, make sure the client is, is he a Ferrari client or is he a Camry client? Let's get that established up front. Then we're not wasting time building these massive proposals with all kinds of details, because to Doug's point, they're not impressed with the details. They always go to the back page and they're like, $500,000, how'd it get to be $500,000? We're trying to alleviate that or mitigate that.
How is the app itself structured? Is it designed for the integrator to do room by room or system by system, or is it flexible in that way?
So currently it's just system by system. It's designed to be, if you're familiar with the HTSA app, nice little app, to be able to create very rough order of magnitude budgets quickly, almost do it yourself. Like a client can go in and say, I have 5,000 square feet and I want lighting control, and it gives a range of numbers. Ours is designed to be kind of one step up from that, because in addition to getting a more tightly defined budget, this also works as a proposal intake tool. So for us, it's systems, displays, theater, audio distribution, network, racks, power. You just system by system. You can say, and it's based on good, better, best sliders. So you can say good TVs, 6 at $500, better TVs, 2 at $2,500. You know, special application TV, so it might be a sunbright on the patio type of thing, 1 at $5,000. So the client can see incrementally, like, oh wow, this is all of a sudden 6 TVs became $18,000. How did that happen? I thought TVs were $1,000 a piece. You know, so it's based on systems and sliders, and it's, to Doug's point, it's really intended to as quickly as possible answer the question, how much is this going to cost? So when a client says, we've talked about TVs in these areas and ask the inevitable, well, how much is that going to cost? If you can pull a few sliders across and say, well, that's going to cost about $25,000. Well, how do you know? Well, because the app says so. You know, my audio distribution, we have 12 rooms, you know, it's 24 speakers at $500 a piece, plus these electronics, it's going to be about $50,000. Really? $50,000? How can it be less? Well, we can do $250 a piece speakers, you know, and now it's $40,000. Oh, okay. Well, that's better. Let's do that. And so at the bottom, when it gets to be $500,000, they're not surprised. When you now take that to your design department and they write a proposal, now they turn all of those, you know, good TVs into Sony, you know, XBR 950Js, then, and come back and it matches the quantity, it matches, you know, the number of locations, and it matches that expected budget, your close rate goes through the roof because they know that's what's coming and they've already written you a 2% design retainer to produce it.
You just hinted on my next question from a results standpoint. What have you seen from the integrators who use it? Is it a higher close rate? Is it a higher ticket sale? Is it just, again, less time wasted on proposals, whether the closing rate's the same or not, but they're not putting together proposals that are just off the mark? Give me a sense of the results there.
What this system is really us pulling together component parts that we've seen our clients use, some using the portfolio book, some, you know, having us do concept drawings. The app is a new release for us. It was just a way to get it off of a notepad and into electronic form, you know, so it can do the math for you instead of, you know, having to scribble it out or type it up. But what we've seen from clients that embrace the scope and budget selling process, the close rate, that is, when we get a proposal request from those clients, it's almost 100% going to close. It comes in and there's a design retainer behind it. The client has seen a scope and a budget, and their close rate, in fact, goes through the roof, and it does reduce proposal generation time because we know what we're writing to. We're not having to ask a bunch of questions. So it reduces, you know, we're trying to reduce the sales process time. So if you spend an extra half hour talking about scope and budget, can we make up hours on the back end in terms of getting the proposal written? Yeah, we can. Less back and forth with the client, less questions with the salesperson. So the answer to the question is shorten the sales cycle, less surprises for the client in terms of, you know, that first presentation of, well, here's your proposal, and they really don't know till they go to the back page how much it's going to cost. Those are all the things we're trying to, you know, to address, I guess, with this system.
Give me a little more specifics on the app. Is it designed for a mobile device? Is it tablet oriented? And what's it cost for an integrator?
So right now, the app is our first foray into software. I mean, we are fundamentally a, you know, for 15 years, we're an outsourced design engineering company. The database, which we haven't talked about, but all of this stuff rides on top of our BlueDog database, which supports our design and documentation processes. So software is really something that, you know, like I say, it was our first attempt to say, well, let's get this off of, you know, Excel or a notepad and into an app. So it is browser based. To answer your question, it'll run on anything. You can run it on an iPad, you can run it on it's just a browser. It is based on, there's no logic behind it currently. Like I say, it's kind of a fancy calculator built to our industry. We have, depending on how this goes, there's the real possibility that we'll advance it and make it, you know, people are already asking, you know, as soon as you release software, the reality is people want more. So it's built by system now. You mentioned rooms. We've got requests for, can it do rooms? You know, can I define my slider ranges? Can I change the labeling on it? So we're getting this rolled out. We've got another big software project we're working on the data side of things currently, but that's going to give us more capabilities for what we do with the app in a next iteration. So right now, it's a 4-function calculator that's built around our industry to help qualify, to answer that how much is it going to cost question. It's going to provide guidance to a system designer in terms of proposal intake, because I know I need 6 TVs at $500. Well, that answers a lot of questions. Even if I call it room 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, at least I know what I'm writing that proposal to. So right now, anything you can run it on anything. It's no tied to any databases currently, but there's a roadmap where if the response to it is good, there's a lot more we can do with it.
So you mentioned design fees, design retainer fees. You know, the integrators that I've spoken with through the years, you know, they say if they can get that design retainer fee, then the closing ratio is going to be near, you know, 90+%, because that is really they've gotten a commitment from that customer, and it sounds like the app really kind of greases the skids for that first, you know, toe in the water from the client to commit to the design fee. How many integrators that you deal with and you talk to still aren't out there charging for design? And again, if it's a hang and bang TV, I can get it where they may not want to on that kind of a project. But should they be charging? Is there a certain level where you believe an integrator should be charging for a design fee on every project? And what's your experience are you finding from the integrators you're dealing with on how many just still aren't doing it?
Well, I think it's determinant on locations and the demographics of the area that people are selling in. You're right. Hang and bang televisions, why bother doing retainer-based design? I would say that most of our clients that are pushing the $250,000 jobs and above pretty much are getting design retainers before they're starting, because they just realize that by the time that they get deep into this thing, you know, they could spend tens of hours trying to get a proposal together, and they can't tolerate that. I would say a lot of the 75,000 to just under $250,000 companies, I'd say 50% approximately are doing retainers. You know, we've still got some guys out there that are winging it. But the people that are most successful in the integration with the BlueDog way are guys that are going out there, setting expectations up front, selling the design retainer, sometimes even selling the job because they can. You know, maybe they've got a reoccurring builder, or they've got a client that's got multiple homes around the country. You know, those are the slam dunks. But I think that it's when an integrator sits down in front of a client, whether it be an end user or a new builder or a new designer, you know, I think it's still, people are very shy about talking about money, and people are very shy about getting into that first meeting and really getting into the meat. Usually, you know, in our industry, I know guys that get in there and they start to talk and get passionate about all of the items that they want to talk about. And then they go, all right, we'll put something together, see you in a week or so. And they don't talk money. They don't talk retainer. So, you know, these tools that we have help. They assist. You know, I have consulted with so many very experienced integrators on, give me your view on how to sell this thing. And, you know, once we get through 15, 20 minutes, I realize, oh my goodness, you're not asking for a retainer. You're not talking about money. Let's talk about that up front. Let's make this a methodology of selling, not just winging it, trying to be your your interior designer's best friend. So
to just piggyback on that a little, I think the point at which the system gets too big to calculate in your head. So where is that? For a lot of salespeople that have done sales for a while, you know, they can tell a client that, well, with your CCTV system and your network system and these TVs, et cetera, we're talking $50,000, $75,000 here. Are you comfortable with that? And you know what? That's good. That's, you know, you can qualify to that point. They can, but when the system gets to be 6 figures plus, I mean, when you're doing audio distribution and video distribution and larger networks and the numbers get to be too big in your head, if you're not putting something together at that point around scope and budget, then you are going to iterate in your proposal process. You just, I mean, that's where it starts to be developed. So the idea is the tool, like I say, do you want to add it up in your head, or do you want to have something you're running in the background? You don't have to show the client, but at least if they start asking how much is this, and you can't tell them, you know, pretty closely what it's going to be, then why not just pull a tool out and say, well, let's add it up, see where you're at, you know?
You know, I think one of the biggest disservices for our industry are those home improvement TV shows where they walk into the house, it's a complete and total disaster, and then the contractor says, well, it's going to be blank, and he cites a number right on the spot, you know, for the TV audience. So to that point, it sounds like this tool also could increase the satisfaction for that end user, that ultimate customer, because they're not going to get blindsided. They're going to kind of understand that proposal or the beginning of that proposal process from the outset. And I would bet that would be one area or one metric that would come out of this would be just a higher client satisfaction rate.
For my part of the reason that I wanted to develop this is when we've done home remodeling and we bring contractors out and I say, well, how much is this driveway going to be? And they're like, I'll have to go back and put some numbers together for you. Well, how much is this pool going to be? Well, I'm going to have to go put some numbers together for you. And it's like, well, can you give me a range? You know, we're doing kitchen cabinets. Well, like, what is this going to run? I got to go put some numbers together for you. And they're maybe taking some notes on a yellow pad. If somebody had been standing there with an app and saying, you know, well, you've got this many square feet and we're going to use this quality of paver and your budget is going to be, you know, probably $10,000 to $15,000, I'd have been a lot more comfortable with that. To your point, Jason. Yeah, it does increase the comfort level. I'm not going to be surprised if they come back and say the driveway is going to be 25 grand. So that's the idea, that's why we should be talking about price and quality levels. So let them talk through that. Let them digest it a little bit.
Yeah. So if an integrator wants to get in touch with you guys, where should they go?
To the website. And you had asked about, you know, the cost of the app, and we glossed over that. But we actually have a version of it that's free. We built it to be a tool for the industry. So there's a single user version, you know, single user, single app, active app that's free. So if you just want to have it and have it as a tool in your toolbox, it's available. For people who are using it more and need more people being able to log in to more devices and have more active quotes, it's like $8 a month. And for more of that, it goes up to, you know, $15 a month. So it's very affordable. It is not by any stretch of the imagination something that is a you know, a source of real revenue for us. It's really a tool, you know, to help our clients.
So when we look at the big picture, how can this app help with this big problem that the industry is facing right now, which is not enough manpower to get out there and get the jobs done?
So you've got your sales guys out there working really hard to get new sales. And right now, you know, our economy is booming, construction is booming, everything's great. So you start at the very top of that funnel and you want your clients and your projects to slide right down into the funnel and into the process. What you don't want is a bunch of bumps, a bunch of spaces, a bunch of time gaps. So the reality of what we can do is take that scope and budget tool, take the outcome of the meeting, take the notes, and we can then digest them into you know, you can hire us as an outsourced resource in order to document all of the process. We could start at the pre-proposal, we can do a complete specification. Once the job is sold and it's ready to go, then we can do all of the construction documents that go along with that. We can start out with various different graphics that can help you with the sales efforts. So smoothing down that funnel allows your sales guys to go back out, get more sales, take advantage of the hot market while we've got it. And it allows integrators, one of integrators' toughest experience is trying to get a business that they can scale as they need to, meaning hiring enough designers to take care of this booming market. But what do you do with them after the booming market slows down just a little bit? Okay, we always deal with ebb and flow, and it doesn't matter if you're doing $500,000 in sales or you're doing $18 million in sales. Scaling a business is difficult. So you take the scope and budget tool, you create the expectations, you hand it off to an outsourced resource like BlueDog, and we develop all of your documentation. From that point forward, you plug it into your project management, your procurement, and your installation, and you've got a job process that is scalable and that you can sustain over a long period of time.
So what I would piggyback on that is simply that we provide an experienced team that can take the responsibilities of writing proposals, doing construction drawings, handling change orders off your current team. So if you have sales guys writing proposals, let them go sell. If you have project managers that are trying to put a drawing together, let them go project manage. Let our team, let our experience take that weight off of them so that you can repurpose them to go do the things that frankly we can't do. We're not on site, we can't do those things. So our goal, one of our fundamental mantras at D-Tools is that successful projects require accurate proposals require accurate data. So that's all well and good, but somebody has to build it. So who's it going to be? Do you want to outsource it to somebody who's built to do that? Or do you want to try to have somebody do it in-house? And if you're short of labor, we provide a resource for that.
Fantastic. And right now, integrators are so busy that any tool that they can get, in their quiver, so to speak, that helps them be more efficient is much needed. And it sounds like this tool is right up that alley. So Kurt Hayes and Doug Dodd, thanks for joining CE Pro today and talking about BlueDog Group and how integrators can improve their sales processes.